Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Sphumelele Zondi. Today we have information on free Wi-Fi in public areas in Potchefstroom. We visit the iPhone debacle as the company refuses to release user information. We'll also go to Uganda, where social media was blocked on election day a few days ago. The main opposition leader was arrested on the day as well, and the government said the blockage was for security reasons. Our discussion is with Exclusive Books and Via Africa on the digitization of literature. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Let's start with your social media and technology news. Now, we put our private information on our cell phones with the hope that it's going to remain there. This might not be the case for an iPhone user in America if the FBI gets its way. He is Syed Rizwan Farouk, who shot and killed 14 people in San Bernardino in America. In the past week, the Bureau took Apple to court over the decryption of his cell phone.
It's a battle of greater good between Apple and the FBI. Upon arresting the San Bernardino shooter, Syed Farouk, the FBI wanted his phone to be decrypted. But this didn't sit well with Apple's Tim Cook, who responded with this letter.
The United States government has demanded that Apple take an unprecedented step which threatens the security of our customers. We oppose this order, which has implications far beyond the legal case at hand. This moment calls for public discussion, and we want our customers and people around the country to understand what is at stake.
In 2014, Apple built software with encryption code to protect users' information. This software destroys all private data after 10 failed password attempts. FBI wants Apple to build a new malware to change the operating system and enable them to have as many attempts as they need.
The government would have us remove security features and add new capabilities to the operating system, allowing for a password input electronically. This would make it easier to unlock an iPhone by brute force, trying thousands or even millions of combinations with the speed of a modern computer.
We cannot get the evidence that may identify the individual who committed the crime because a cell phone company and designer has decided that they know better and that they know where to draw the line between public safety and privacy, and have decided to make their devices inaccessible even to judicial warrants.
But analysts say the law enforcement agencies have a negative cloud over them.
It goes back to public knowledge that the NSA is known for spying on American nationals and foreign nationals without permission. So on the other hand, you have that situation where everybody knows that the NSA has been doing this, and everybody's skeptical to say, okay, but are they really doing this for security reasons? Whether it's requesting from Microsoft, from Google, or from Apple.
Some people feel that it's wrong to decrypt personal devices like a phone.
A cell phone is like a personal thing that you can use for your information, you know. You have your personal things that you save.
Privacy invasion, because I have a lot of private conversations. I have a lot of meaningful and deep conversations with close family, friends. It can be very
uncomfortable. I think it's everyone has a right.
We deserve our own privacy. It's a free country, right? We deserve our privacy, and we need our space.
Even if Apple was to eventually agree to this, it will take months for them to finally give the FBI what it wants.
Smartphone. We went to the streets of Johannesburg to find out. This is because a new company called Reware refurbishes old high-end smartphones and sells them at a much cheaper price.
A study conducted by Nottingham Trent University in England showed that the average smartphone user picks up their handset 85 times a day. That's how much smartphones mean to a lot of people. Though loved by many, a lot of these handsets don't come cheap. That's why Reware saw a gap in the second-hand smartphone market for those that have the desire to own a high-end device but don't have enough money to buy a new one.
We get pre-owned smartphones from international markets. There are big aggregators internationally that do this. And we buy a specific grade of device that's then imported into South Africa. Once it reaches our shores, we then put every single device through a diagnostic process to see what are the issues, if there are any, what needs to be repaired and what doesn't. And then we do repairs where need be. Following that, we clean and sanitize the devices and then package them with new accessories. What we mean by new accessories is the plug and the USB cable.
We at Network took this information to people in the Johannesburg CBD to hear what they feel about purchasing a refurbished high-end smartphone.
I don't like second-hand things, so I wouldn't buy a second-hand phone.
I'm not believing in buying something like this that has been owned by someone before. I like buying new stuffs so that I can have all those guarantees and stuff.
Some people like this lady voiced out their concerns of buying second-hand phones that might have been used for illegal purposes.
As far as I'm concerned, I'll purchase a phone even if it's a cheap phone, but if it's a new phone. Because for reasons where that phone is coming from, you see. You don't know, somebody that's used that phone for criminal purposes and you go and purchase it, you see.
Riwe CEO Felix Martin Aguilar says customers need not worry about this as theirs are legitimate and fully functional devices.
What we offer to the consumer is that you have a 1-year guarantee. You have a presence that is reputable retailers in the country that you can go. I mean, you are in Cape Town, you go to Edgar's in Cape Town, and then you can sort your phone if there is a problem. So we offer that peace of mind. No, we guarantee that your purchase it's going to be worth your while.
Though some were skeptical about buying refurbished phones, other Joburgers don't seem to mind it and said it could be a good way to cut costs.
I would buy a cheaper one, a second-hand one, cheaper phone, and a smart one. Why? For what? Maybe you are spending 8,000 or maybe 4,000 for an expensive one, rather than maybe someone used it for just a month or so, then you get it cheaper.
If I knew better, I would have bought a cheaper one because the new one is really expensive.
Riwe mainly sells refurbished iPhones and Samsung devices that are only available in participating South African retail stores. The company also says it will be opening an online store soon.
Now let's take a look at what's been making tech headlines in the rest of the world.
The International Data Corporation South Africa held its Internet of Everything conference in Johannesburg earlier this week. IDC Senior Research Manager and host of the event, George Galebaila, said that it is important for people to understand that IoT is not a technology, but rather an ecosystem of connected things that can only be enabled through partnerships amongst industry players. The IoT conference had big industry players such as Vodacom and IBM as participants in the event. The companies informed guests on the roles they will be playing in the deployment of IoT here in South Africa. Still in the African continent. Technology is supposed to make 21st century elections run smoothly, but not in Uganda as the biometric system failed on Thursday. The government also shut down social media, mobile money transfers and over-the-top services. The United Nations has said that the decision by the Ugandan government to shut down social media has human rights implications. It's not the first time this has happened in Africa, as it happens in times of protests as well.
The relationship between government and internet service providers. Because if you think about it, for government to be able to close this space, they should be doing that together with internet service providers. Now, how does that work? Because this is not just government and it's not just Uganda. We have seen this happening in Mozambique a few years ago. I think it was about 3 years ago during the food riots, where government and MTN in particular had to shut down WhatsApp.
Now heading over to the most populous country in the world, China. The Apple Pay mobile payment system has been officially available to Chinese customers who use iPhones since Thursday, cooperating with the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, otherwise known as the ICBC.
We have launched the service mainly at some supermarkets and popular restaurants. In general, any point of sale dispatched by any banks or at the Union Pay with the mark of Quick Pass can accept the Apple Pay theoretically. so the range of acceptance is extensive.
However, the launch of Apple Pay in China might have posed a threat to another popular mobile payment system, Alipay, but nothing has been confirmed as yet. Now off to Tinseltown, the home of the rich and famous. The FBI is investigating a cyber attack that has crippled the electronic database at Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center for days, forcing doctors at the Los Angeles hospital to rely on telephones and fax machines to relay patient information.
So how most people get infected with ransomware is they go to a website or they receive an email, a spoofed email, that causes them to open up and download what is called a dropper. This dropper drops onto your computer system and then contacts out via the internet to a command and control server, which starts the process.
On that last story there, I wonder how many people still use fax machines. It's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za and email. After the break, we'll talk the digitization of literature with exclusive books and Via Africa. Stay with us.
Our eyes are the window to the beautiful wonders of the world, but blindness enhances other senses. Technology has made living with blindness easy.
If you look on the side here, it's got like grooves in there. Yeah. So the first one after when it comes together will be 20 Rand, 50 Rand. And if I slide this in, I can see according to the grooves, it's now on 50 Rand.
To Steve Kekana, blindness was never a hindrance, but a blessing.
You got to know that you are the child of the universe, being blind, and you've got the right to be here.
Join your host, Dr. Sello Mutawun, every Saturday from 9 a.m.
I'm Peter Ngo.
And I'm Rebecca Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, and Hauser Bush Imbev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful. Have you ever considered skin bleaching?
Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin. Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally.
Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
It's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thank you very much for choosing us tonight. Now, the IAB Bookmark Awards have announced their finalists for this year. They say they received the highest number of entries. The IAB Bookmark Awards honors individuals, agencies and brands that have achieved excellence in digital creative work and execution. We spoke to Jared Sinman, who is the Managing Director of digital marketing agency Native VML.
The Bookmarks are the most prestigious digital awards in South Africa. They were started about 7 or 8 years ago, and they've grown, as has digital as an industry, dramatically every year. We reward 3 kind of broad groups of people. We reward digital advertisers, so people that are doing interesting things from a digital advertising point of view. We reward digital publishers, so people that are putting out content and producing content online. And we also reward brands for the innovation and work around digital that they're doing. A piece of work that's submitted doesn't just have to be great and doesn't just have to prove that it was creatively excellent, but it needs to show how it achieved actual results for the customer and for the market. And I think that does help the industry and the clients, because it helps to encourage people to do work that is responsible and that will actually help the client to ultimately achieve their business results. At the end of the day, it's not art. this is business. And if digital can make your business work and improve, then digital will win.
Now, a lot of literature has moved online, and there are tools like the Kindle by Amazon that have been designed for the purpose of people that don't want hard copy books. A place most people go when they need new information is the internet. But what then happens to books and publishers who have traditionally made their information available on paper? Joining us in studio to discuss this is Benjamin Trisk, who is the CEO at Exclusive Books. Hello, and thank you for being a part of our network.
Pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
In Cape Town, we also have Michael Goodman, who is the Group Content Manager at Educational Publishing House Via Africa. Hello, and thank you for joining us as well.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
All right, so now, Benjamin, let's start with you. Has Kindle ever taken off?
Well, yes, obviously Kindle took off, and for the period, say, 2007 to 2012, made huge inroads, particularly into the paperback fiction market. But when I and my shareholders bought the business in December 2013, in fact, the very first interview I gave was to say that the Kindle was the new microwave, and that its use as a thoroughgoing platform and reading device was limited. And we're seeing that today significantly, a significant reversion to books both in South Africa. We've seen the same trend in the United States and in the United Kingdom.
Michael, you in publishing, do you agree with that? Do you think that people are no longer interested in reading books online as they were in the beginning stages of tools like Kindle?
I'm not sure that it's a completely easy answer, because for me it seems that as book prices on have moved closer to book prices that are in printed books, there seems to have been a slowdown, and things are, so I would say that e-reading is becoming more reaching its level rather than actually people leaving reading it or not wanting to be it. So I think we're going to need a few more years. It's a very early stage for me, I think, even though it seems a long time, before we can see what people's uptake is.
So, Michael, as a publisher, how do you then, in this period, when you are saying, let's watch and see, what do you then do? Do you continue printing loads and loads of books on paper, or do you then switch to digital tools?
Okay, what we've been doing is working both sides of the market, and I think we're quite lucky being at this end of it compared to your studio guest, because we're the ones who get to make those decisions and put the book out there, and we're not particularly reliant on how the person chooses to purchase the book. We make smart decisions in terms of the number of copies we'll print on a print run, and we're very, very mindful of the sort of requirements that the market wants on paper versus digital. But what we're getting right, I think, is getting to make the books in a way right at the beginning that allows us to choose which format we're going to output it as, and then we're able to meet the market's needs quite easily that way.
Benjamin, did you ever, in the beginning stages, and even now, get publishers who insist on you going digital in what you offer?
No, not at all. That never has happened. But I would disagree with your guest in Cape Town to some extent. I mean, last year around October, November, James Daunt, who's the head of Waterstone, which is one of the biggest book retail groups in the world, announced that they were delisting Kindle. And he delisted Kindle, and these are his words. He said Kindle sales are dead. Now, that is a far-reaching statement. And I don't think Kindle sales are dead. I think, as Michael has suggested, they've probably reached a plateau. But we are seeing a significant reversion to print at Exclusive Books, and that is not a store. I can tell you that that is the case throughout our national footprint.
Why? How did you call it in the beginning? Why did you know so well that this was not going to last?
For two things. I mean, I suppose part of it was emotional. I was brought up with books, so I have a passion and an attachment to them. But also, we saw in 2012 that the growth rate of electronic book downloads had almost flattened. I think in 2012, the AAP figures in the United States were a 5% increase after being triple digit increases for some years prior to that, and that has now flattened and has started to decrease.
Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to stay with us. That is Benjamin Trisk and Michael Goodman, who is joining us from Cape Town. I'm going to ask you to stay with us, and then we're going to continue this conversation after the break. So if you want to find us in social media, remember that we are on SABC Network. On email, it's it's newsnetwork@sabc.co.za. That is the newsnetwork@sabc.co.za. We'll continue the discussion right after this. Stay with us.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Right, SABC Network in all social media. If you are just joining us, we are still talking about the digitization of literature. Joining me in studio is Benjamin Trisk, who is the CEO at Exclusive Books. In Cape Town, there's Michael Goodman, who is the Group Content Manager at Educational Publishing House of Africa. Now, Benjamin, everyone keeps on saying, let's buy digital tools for the kids. Is that, you do not agree with that?
Well, you know, I have nothing against digital tools for the children. But let me tell you this, and anyone will tell you that reading is fundamental to an educated and productive society. It's not a negotiable. And what we do see is that children's book sales are the fastest growing sector of our 40-odd categories in Exclusive Books. So children's book sales are contributing more per square meter than any other particular category. And that's something we're very cognizant of. And if you've been into any of our new stores and you've seen the rebranding of Exclusive Books, you'll see that more and more emphasis is going into children's departments, children's sections, and there are these huge beanbags that we put out, and the best thing I ever have in my day is to go into a store and see kids just lounging around on these cushions reading books.
And Michael, you are into educational books. Would you agree with that sentiment? And in fact, you are investing in digital centers for kids, aren't you?
We are. I think, first of all, I agree with Mr. Trisk. I think it's exciting that kids are reading. And for us as an educational publishing house, that's the key element. And I think the debate that we have between whether it's a printed book or an e-book is almost a little spurious, because particularly at the young age, as long as kids are reading, that's the key element. But in terms of where we're going in education, we think that there is a great deal that digital education can offer a country like South Africa in terms of making material more easily available. And while I'd certainly not say that we would say that every kid should never touch a paper book or only be focused on a digital screen, we do think that the multimedia opportunities within books that are possible using a tablet, for example, does make it a whole lot easier. We have, for example, a process whereby we're digitizing our African literature backlist, and we've developed an app that allows the user to interface with it in his or her own chosen language, any of the 11 languages in South Africa. And we're seeing quite an interesting uptake in terms of that, whereas Xitsonga reader is wanting to interact with the whole digital experience in Xitsonga and is downloading it. And so for us, it's about getting the reading word out there, and if it works on digital better, then that's where we're going to keep going.
How easy is that process, especially with African languages?
It's tricky. What we've had to do is, rather than working in EPUB 3 format, we're having to work in EPUB 2 format just to allow the diacritics in some of the languages to work more easily. But it's working very effectively. What we also were keen to do is to make sure that the books would be available both on feature phones as well as smartphones. Now, currently in South Africa, we're looking at about between 30 and 40% of users are using smartphones, and the balance of users would be using feature phones. And we wanted to be sure that any South African would be able to do the reading. So we developed it in such a way that both opportunities would exist. What we're seeing at our digital education centres in the schools that we're working on is that they're using the Android version of it, and the uptake has been very heartening for us.
And Benjamin, these multi-platforms that he's talking about, is that important to you at all as exclusive books, or are you a hardline paper book?
Well, I think we straddle two worlds.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, my abiding interest is the paper product, but at the same time, increasingly we are using every single digital device and social media platform to market and sell books. So I want to use all the marketing muscle that's available to me to sell books, but in the end I want to sell books. That's not to say you can't go onto our website and order an ebook if you want. We do that all the time, and people buy ebooks, and I can understand if you're in a farm in a remote area, well, that's a very easy way to get access to the literature you want.
All right. Benjamin Trisk from Exclusive Books, thank you very much for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
All right. And Michael Goodman from Via Africa, thank you very much for joining us in Cape Town.
Thank you very much.
All right, and that's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's News Network at SABC.co.za, and email. We'll leave you with images from Armed Forces Day, which was celebrated in Port Elizabeth today. From me and the rest of the network team, have a good one.